Possible in part by the Stroh Brewery Company, a family-owned brewery, and its distributors throughout Michigan.
We have one tired dog right here. Old Spirit has been out getting some birds for us here. We're put-take hunting with Pete Squibb of the DNR, Al Massey, Bob Garner. We had quite a morning. The put-take system, which I guess is going to be phased out this year, Pete?
That's right. Legislatively, it's gone as of November 14th.
Well, this film is going to be historic when you look at it next year, but this year, it's still in operation. We went put-take pheasant hunting, got a great pheasant recipe coming up, too. You're going to see all about it in the next few minutes, so stay tuned. It's Thursday night, time for Michigan Outdoors.
From the rugged shore and woodlands of the north, it's history of copper mines and iron ore, the Great Lakes fisheries. To the farmlands of the southern counties, we'll look around again at all that waits the sportsman in the state of Michigan.
Well, we had quite a morning's hunt. We got 1, 2, 3 roosters. You got any more there, Bob?
Another one here.
Yeah, for 4 of us, that's 6 birds. 6 roosters are the last of the put-take. Kind of too bad? You sorry about that? I know a lot of hunters are. Or do you think there are better things coming up for hunters?
I think there's going to be some better things coming up. It's unfortunate to see the put-take go, especially the way it has. There's an awful interest in it. Unfortunately, the people that are partaking in it right now have not expressed an interest in maintaining the program effectively in the past. And in this time of budget cuts, this is one of the programs that's looked at very closely.
Whoa.
Huh. Oh!
Good dog.
Get it over here?
Yep.
There's a group right now, the Bend Michigan Bird Hunters Association, that has been proposing, and we've been looking at it, and if they had the support and the number of people, it would probably fly, that they pay a set amount for a permit to hunt put-take birds, say $25.
Mm-hmm.
And then each bird then, or each seal, would then also cost, say, $2 or $2.50 or $3 or some fee in there. And between those two costs, that would pick up the bulk of it.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the full program.
Whoa. Okay, Spirit. Okay. Faster? Oh, there. Go ahead. Oh. Good job. Look.
Al, you've done a lot of put-take hunting over the years, right?
Yes, I
With your
have.
dog? How come?
Yes, I have. It's a good opportunity to hunt for a few hours in the morning or in the afternoon, take the family out, get some exercise, give the dog some training. I have enjoyed the program.
Well, as the pheasant numbers dropped in the past 10, 15 years, were you on the brink of hanging it up on pheasant hunting and going to grouse or waterfowl, or?
Well, I am a duck hunter, but I did slow down on pheasant hunting efforts for wild birds.
It just wasn't productive for you?
It just
wasn't productive enough?
You had to spend all day, all weekend to possibly get 1 or 2 birds. And it was very hard hunting, and the birds simply weren't there.
So what are you going to do now that they're going to fold up put-take?
Well, I hope the department's got some better plans on the drawing board, and we'll see what they come up with. In the interim, we'll spend some time hunting grouse and woodcock and try to make the best of it.
New plans on the drawing board, Pete?
Yeah, there are, Fred. Quite a few, as a matter of fact. Most of our plans are going to have some long-range effects. We may not notice it here in the next 2 or 3 years. The effects it's going to have specifically on pheasants.
Now, is this mainly habitat work you're going to do?
It's going to be habitat work primarily on private lands. Right now, you know, southern Michigan is made up of 98% of the land here is privately owned. 2% is game areas and public land. If you're going to affect populations of wildlife, The only way you can do it is to work on the private lands, and we have not done that as a division or a department for quite some time.
So we're going to try to bring back the natural population.
We're going to look at pheasants and see if we can better determine why pheasants have gone the way they have, and try to make every effort possible to remedy that situation if we can.
Okay, every pheasant hunter has his own theory on what he's heard. Start with you, Al. What happened to the pheasants? What happened to the population? Why did they plummet in the past 20 years?
I think it had a lot to do with habitat type changing, cleaner farming, pesticides, those types of things.
Bob Garner, what's your theory?
Well, we're simply not seeing the small 10-acre parcels of farming with all the brushy fence rows and that sort of thing. But also there is one little theory that keeps hanging on when I think of pheasants, and that is that naturally when any species is introduced, be it anything, Fred, and it fills a niche.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
After a while, that species, species builds to a large population, and after a while comes plummeting down for some unexplainable reason. And it's a biological phenomenon. Well, Pete can tell you more about it. But we may be seeing that. And why? How to explain it? Nobody can, and so I'm not even going to take a crack at it.
I think also the genetics have changed on the pheasants. There have been a lot of pheasants shot in this state. We've shot the ones that stay in close and flush. The survivors have gone to the marshes, have turned to running more than flying, and I think the hunting pressure has been something that's had somewhat of an impact on it.
Right. There are some people that feel that is could be one of the factors.
But now you're the biologist at the DNR,
right,
who's in charge of pheasants.
Right.
Okay, so let's get the answer. What happened to the pheasants?
I think,
I think.
Any and, yeah, that's right, any and all of the above. If we really knew what the factors were and we could control them, we would be knee-deep in pheasants again across the country, because we're not the only state that this has happened in. It's happened in every state that there have been pheasants in. The pheasants have built to a high, decreased, leveled off, and now there are some highs and lows in the populations, but generally they are a downward skid.
All right, well, looking at these birds, the ring-necked pheasant is not a bird like a grouse that's natural and native to the United States.
Right. These birds are from Asia, and originally the birds were introduced. They were game farm stock, and this is one of the things that sometimes we do forget too. The birds that were released in the United States were not wild birds from China. Only in a couple small instances were they. They were game farm birds from European game farms that had had these birds out of the wild for many generations. And they had selected these birds for this white ring right here.
Oh, on the neck.
And because the plumage was useful back at the turn of the century, with the pretty hats that all the women had and stuff. And these birds were selected for plumage and for their ability to be tamed.
And of course now one of the big values of birds like this to a lot of hunters is to eat them. You didn't have Kay Ritchie's recipe when we were up at Ludington a year ago.
No.
This is going to be the last recipe that we're going to repeat of the summer. I'm going to put it on later in the show, but it's the best pheasant recipe I've ever had. So we're going to show you how to cook these up. But these are trophies of a sort, I guess, that are good for the table, like a lot of things, and especially fish. And we have some trophies coming up right now as we turn our attention to the Great Lakes and look at our Michigan Outdoors Trophy Report. Chinook salmon are few and far between in Lake Michigan right now. Most have headed to the spawning rivers, but here's a catch of 7 Chinook and 1 coho taken by Lynn Gerlach off Oscoda a couple weeks ago, along with his fishing pals Rob Barth and the fellow who caught that 32-pounder, Jim McGarry. Actually 31 pounds, 14 ounces, but quite a fish. Now notice how silvery those salmon are? That's because they were caught out in the lake. When they run the streams, they turn darker like this one, also caught on August 28th. But Terry Margrath wasn't fishing for salmon. He was fishing for walleyes in downtown Oscoda on the Osable River at about 8 p.m. This 28.5-pounder picked up Terry's nightcrawler on a number 6 hook, stripped out about 130 yards of 10-pound test line, took 2 runs like that, and after 25 minutes, a fellow angler netted it. Terry didn't catch any walleye that night, but he said he was thrilled with this accident. The Great Lakes grow big fish, there's no doubt about that, but so do some little ponds. Here's a 1.5-pound perch taken on a worm by 12-year-old Bill Peters from a gravel pit in Huron County. His 11-year-old brother, Chucky, was also fishing with a worm and caught this 9-pound channel catfish. Would have qualified for a Master Angler Patch, Chucky, if you would have had it registered with the DNR, but this does show you the kind of fish that grow in local ponds. And here's an accidental catch by Todd Nucherling. He was fishing with a night crawler while sucker fishing in early spring. Todd's reel broke when he had the 16.5-pound carp just 10 yards from shore, but he wrestled it in. 2 more anglers with an accidental carp story. Gary Maurer and Paul Van Wormer from Frankenmuth with their 15-pound carp they caught while sucker fishing in the Cass River last spring. A big fish that's as much thrill as a salmon to these kids. Marty Gagnon from Saginaw sent us this photo of his 8-year-old son Jason and his 10-year-old nephew Corey Laberte with 4 king salmon and 1 brown trout their party caught in Lake Huron off Lexington last spring. Corey's mighty proud of his fish, a 24.5-pound brown trout, which earned him a Master Angler Patch and the notoriety of being our Michigan Outdoors Master Angler of the Week.
Fred, those are some really fine trophies, but the season that opens up on perhaps Michigan's biggest trophy, the black bear, started last Saturday in the Upper Peninsula and will begin tomorrow, Friday, in the Lower Peninsula, northern section of Lower Peninsula. I talked to Ralph Bailey, the wildlife biologist in the UP, and he said the kill should be about the same as last year, which was a near record breaker at 1,250 black bear taken from the Upper Peninsula. Now, we've all heard conflicting stories on whether or not we're going to be able to buy spawn bags, whether or not dealers are going to be able to sell them, and whether or not we can sell our eggs to dealers. Conflicting rulings in the courts, but inside word as of this morning is that the department will be forced by a Manistee Circuit Court to issue permits to buy and sell salmon eggs. Now, some good news for duck hunters. It's taken a lot of time, but the federal government has finally approved the season dates and the areas for duck hunting in the state of Michigan. In the Upper Peninsula, duck hunting will commence on October 1st, and in the western 10 counties, goose shooting will commence on September 26th. In the middle area, October 1st is the date for both the duck and goose opener, and in the lower area of Michigan, October 8th is the duck opener and the goose opener, except at Shiawassee and Fish Point, where it's going to begin October 1. And one of the real problems facing Ron Skoog, or real challenges, I should say, is employee morale. And we got a chance to talk to Ron this week about how he views employees and what kind of employees he's looking for. And this is what he had to say.
I'm very adamant in not wanting mediocrity. I can't stand mediocrity in any employee that I have, you know, and while you can't get away from it all, you can always strive toward getting the people who have the talent and have the drive and the creativeness. I think creativity is very important in employees, that they have ideas on how to improve what they're doing, and they're constantly thinking in that manner, as well as being good workers, willing to spend plenty of time at their work.
Well, not only Ron Skoog is going to have to deal with some of these issues, but the governor is also going to have to deal with a number of sportsmen's issues this fall. And we got a chance to talk to Dave Dempsey, who's in the governor's office, and gives him some advice on these things just a couple of days ago. And here's what he had to say.
What do you see as the itinerary, the agenda, the governor's agenda on outdoor sportsman issues or environmental issues for this fall?
Well, a couple of things are obviously on the front burner. The Indian fishing rights issue needs to be moved forward quickly. There is rising tension on that issue, and we're told at least that there's rising pressure on the resource. And the governor is very concerned about the fishery resource. It's an important resource to this state.
I just got some reports from Lance where, and I don't know how accurate they are at this time, that there was an Indian vessel destroyed, that there's been a burning and some shots fired and that sort of thing. Are you keeping up to date on that sort of thing?
Yes, we are. We're keeping tabs on that and are very concerned about the threat of violence. No one can condone violence as a way to settle this problem or as a way to move it ahead. On the other hand, because of that violence, or because of the rising tensions at least, we feel a lot of interest in getting this issue moving forward quickly. And
what can the governor do?
I think the governor, in cooperation with the DNR, can do a couple of things. One is to explore whether the Department of Interior can play a more aggressive role in solving the problem. They have not been playing that role, in the opinion of many who have observed the situation for years. He sent members of his staff to Washington to meet with Interior and to encourage them to become more involved.
Interior is right now the only agency that really has kind of a hammer or a settling influence on the Indians because of the court decision, correct?
Yes, they have a role to play there. But I've got to say, I think the sportsmen of the state need to understand that you can't throw treaties out the window. The courts have affirmed them. As unpopular as that may be, that is a legal right that has been defended by the courts, and the governor of the state can't abrogate or advocate the abrogation of a treaty. But on the other hand, he's sensitive to the fact that there's concern that all the work that the Department of Natural Resources has put into reviving fishery in this state may be in trouble. It may be threatened in some way if we can't resolve this situation very shortly. So we're going to try to do that.
If there is an unwillingness upon the tribe's parts to have a negotiated settlement, if you see that the doors are blocked, the roadblocks are in place, the tribes decide to go with what they have now and not try to negotiate a settlement, then do you think the governor might or take another look at a call to abrogate the treaty rights?
Well, I can't commit the governor on anything. But I must say it's extremely unlikely that Congress is going to abrogate a treaty. It's never done that. In several cases, it has stepped in and offered financial compensation to purchase or buy off a right of the Indians. But that only happens in extremely rare circumstances. I don't think that route is a very likely one for the state to follow. We're hoping for a settlement that would come a lot more quickly than that could come.
What about a time frame? What do you see in that? Well, how quickly, Dave, how quickly could we have a settlement?
Well, I think a lot of people have said we can settle it overnight, and that's not realistic. The governor has directed members of the staff, including myself, but principally the legal advisor, Conrad Mallett, to recommend to him a strategy within the month, well before September's out. That's a strategy that will guide our actions in the future, but we feel that this winter we've got to make a lot of progress toward resolving it because of the awareness that there may be pressure on the resource, and certainly there is rising tension.
Bob, it's an interesting situation with a new governor, new DNR director. We have all these hunting seasons coming up this fall. We're going to be a busy team.
Well, the busier the better, though.
I know. It's going to be a good fall. A lot of exciting things coming up. You're going to want to watch it. One thing right now I promised earlier in the show is that pheasant recipe. Honestly, Bob, the best recipe I've ever tasted. You like to fillet your pheasants and skin them because it's easy.
That's right.
Okay, well, not that I like to pluck them, but I like them when they're plucked. Now, Kay Ritchie did a recipe, and I want you to pay careful attention to the stuffing because it is so succulent. It's excellent. Now, to prepare the stuffing, what did you do? You have some of it already made.
We sautéed onions and celery in butter, and we added a can of cream of chicken soup.
Okay, did you add any milk with that?
No, but we're going to add a little bit of water.
Okay. Is the stove on? Are we cooking?
No, we're not going to cook now. We're just going to put it together.
Oh, okay.
We've already sautéed this.
So there's a can of cream of chicken soup. How many onions?
I would say that there's probably about a quarter of a cup of onion and a half a cup of celery with the leaves.
Okay. Quarter cup and a half a cup. A little bit of water. Now what?
Okay, now we're going to add the wild rice. We've already prepared this. It's all done.
Is this did it come from a box?
Yeah, this is just...
somebody's uncle?
That's who it is.
So we have how much is that? A couple cups?
Yeah, I think that it's probably at least 2 cups. Maybe it's even more than that. I don't really know.
There's plenty of wild rice right there. Is that it? No seasonings?
No. Our seasoning is already in our herb dressing here, our stuffing, and we're going to now add that, and then we're going to...
Seasoned stuffing. This is about 8 ounces. How much do we put in there?
We're going to put the whole thing in, Fred. We're going to have lots of dressing.
Are you ready? There it goes.
Okay.
Herb seasoned stuffing, steamed chicken soup, quarter cup of onions, half a cup of celery with the leaves chopped up, a little bit of water, saute the onions and celery, stir it up. Okay, is that about...
That's about all there is to it. Just make sure that you have enough butter to saute, that you're going to have plenty of moisture, and we're going to have a little bit more water.
How about the bird here? Do we salt and pepper it on the inside?
Yeah, let's salt it quite heavily.
Quite heavily. Okay.
Yeah, get it right down there in the cavity, good.
All right. Right down in there. Tell me when to stop.
Well, don't overdo it.
Okay, there we go. Heavily salted in the cavity of the pheasant. Now we're going to stuff the bird.
Now we're going to do it.
How do you go about this? Should I just hold it like a bag here and you dump it in?
Yep, that'll be real good. This is a two-man job.
The stuffing in this pheasant is delectable in its own right. All the ingredients, the spices, the herb stuffing, but it provides a real function on wildfowl. Now this pheasant, you'll notice, is quite fat, and it's been plucked. It's a game farm bird, which is why it's so fat. Birds in the wild would not be nearly as fat as this, but the stuffing from the inside puts a lot of moisture inside the bird. And that's a problem with wildfowl. And the fat and the skin on the outside moisturizes it, and we set the pheasant on the stuffing that is left, and we're going to pop it in the oven at 350 degrees, salt it on the top just before putting it in the oven. But that's a scrumptious recipe. We're going to have a taste of it in just a moment, but first, let's hear the outdoor calendar from Ed Groves.
Saturday at the Formar Nature Preserve, the Saginaw Valley Waterfowlers are holding a duck identification clinic. If you'd like a local number for this or any event on our calendar, call Bill Swagler at the Michigan Travel Bureau weekdays, toll-free at 1-800-292-2520. The Southern Michigan Trappers Association is hosting a trapper education course Saturday in Mason. The course is free and subjects include ethics, law, and trapline preparation. Commemorative Bucks of Michigan heads to the Upper Peninsula Saturday to measure deer antlers and bear skulls. A $100 savings bond will be given to the person who brings in the largest set of antlers to the P&H Rod and Gun Club in Escanaba. This is the first time Commemorative Bucks has traveled to the UP, and they're looking for some new records. There's a hunter safety course this weekend in Okemos, held by the Chief Okemos Sportsman's Club. The 36th annual duck tournament and decoy contest will be held this weekend at the Point Mouillet State Game Area. Look for the Michigan Outdoors cameras there on Sunday. Trap shoots this weekend are in Niles on Saturday, Walled Lake on Sunday. Handgun metallic silhouette shoots are in Langsburg and Kalamazoo this weekend. You can find turkey shoots on Sunday in Lansing at the Ingham County Conservation League and at the Sparta Hunting and Fishing Club. Ypsilanti hosts a muzzleloader shoot also on Sunday. The Marshall Bowmen are holding a deer and bear shoot on Sunday with 28 3D golden arrow targets, and it's open to the public. And for those waiting with anticipation to next month, look for a bow hunting clinic Wednesday, September 21st at the Fowlerville High School. And that's the Michigan Outdoors Outdoor Calendar.
And here it is, your stuffed pheasant.
Right.
Okay, Richie. And this has been in the oven for, what, an hour?
Approximately an hour, Fred. The way that I test for doneness is I pierce the breast, and then I push, and the juices that come out as you press should just slightly be pink.
That indicates what?
That indicates that it's just about done perfect.
Oh, okay. How about slicing into it? I can't wait to taste it.
All right.
Recipe for stuffed pheasant.
How about a little taste of the wild rice dressing with it?
Boy, is that scrumptious. That is great, but that meat is just done to perfection. Boy, I could sit here and eat this all day. I honestly could. My favorite pheasant recipe by author of Savor the Wild cookbook, Kay Ritchie, but we have that recipe on our upcoming edition of our Michigan Outdoors Club Digest, and for a free copy, write to us at Michigan Outdoors, Box 1, East Lansing, 48823. Our salmon season is drawing to a close in Michigan for many people because they want to get over to the hunting. But yesterday we were out fishing with former Governor Milliken and Emil Dean right out here off Manistee. Emil closed up his lake fishing today. But yesterday we got 4 salmon. Governor Milliken got his first 4. They were all coho. The coho were primarily the ones that are still out in the lake. There's some Chinook in Traverse Bay, some Chinook down in the southern part of the state, but most of the state, the Chinook are in close in the rivers or in the lakes. They've already moved in. The inland lake fishing is warming up as the weather cools down. This sort of coincides with the general conditions. We saw a little tinge of color change in the trees as we were coming back from Manistee yesterday. As far as the small game season goes, well, squirrels are in plentiful numbers all over. Of course, pheasant is down, grouse is down, but we talked with Pete Squibb, who has really been watchdogging southern Michigan, and we found out from the DNR, this is what he had to say about the upcoming small game seasons.
Grouse and woodcock, it should be a good season. Last year, we were kind of pleasantly surprised that within the southern farm country, there were almost 70,000 people that said that they hunted rough grouse in the woodlots of southern Michigan last year, and they killed about 130,000 rough grouse. And we're very pleased with that. It indicates a habitat change, but it also indicates that people are becoming aware of those birds and the recreation that they're able to provide. And we're kind of hoping that the rabbits, squirrels, woodcock, and grouse will be able to provide the outdoor wildlife recreation for small game in this next year or two until we can get our programs online and see what we can do for pheasants.
Well, I'll tell you, as far as I'm concerned, if the pheasants don't come back in the numbers that they were at one time, it's not going to bother me too much because there's so much else to do. We have the bear hunting in the Upper Peninsula. Our deer season is going to open very soon. We're going to have an excellent year. Bow hunting. As far as fishing in the Upper Peninsula, pink salmon are moving off the mouths of the streams right now in many of the areas. Bay de Noc is good for smallmouth bass and walleye as well. Gulliver Lake, boy, that's been a hot spot all summer long, and that's producing some mighty fine catches. Let's see. Well, get over here and find out what you guys are going to do this weekend. There's so much going on, preparing for duck hunting. Yep. What are you going to do, Bob?
Well, I'm going to be up around the Cadillac area. Even though grouse are down a little bit up there, I'm going to be grouse and woodcock hunting up there.
And Ed, what about you?
Well, Sunday we'll be at Point Mouillet, the duck show there, the duck tournament.
Duck tournament, and I'm going to be up at the Houghton Lake Association Saturday afternoon, talking to their Lake Association, big shindig they have. Probably get some fishing in up there, too, because I hear that's warming up on Houghton Lake. But whatever you do, have a good weekend outdoors. Enjoy yourself. It's a great place to be. We'll see you right here next week. What would we have done without Spirit this morning? Very well?
We would have got a lot more exercise. Those birds were running on us, and those that would settle down held awful tight. And
we would have walked right by them.
We could have walked by most of those birds, and we would have been lucky to get a couple instead of 6.
Without a dog, you probably wouldn't have been pheasant hunting at all in the past 10 years in the state.
No, I wouldn't. A lot of the enjoyment of being out there is just having the dog and watching the dog.
What do you enjoy about it? What's the biggest thrill to you?
Well, the dog has a lot of natural instincts, and this is an opportunity to see the dog working its instincts against the bird's instincts, and the two of them coming together to see who can outwit who.
Production of Michigan Outdoors is made possible in part by the Stroh Brewery Company, a family-owned brewery, and its distributors throughout Michigan.